All right, let's talk about making better renders. It comes down to a number of different things. I would say the most important is lighting, with the second being finishes, and then the third being modeling. Textures are important, and you're going to need to get those right, but lighting and camera position exceed those. Now, for an interior, you want to have soft lighting. You don't want to have loads of sharp shadows. You don't necessarily want to have all the lights in the room appearing in your render. That's not what you want. If you have all the lights in the room appearing, in this render you see you've got lights here, I've got lights in these. Now these should be lined up with these, but if I do, I get these burnouts here on the wall. So I moved them across. So I just cheated that. But if I have these on bright and I have only a little bit of light coming through the window, then it's just not going to be a good render. And the reason this is using so much memory, look, I'm using 34 gigabytes of memory to render this scene, and the reason for this is because I'm using 4K textures on just about everything. Some of my textures are higher. So if I'm using 2K textures, which I guess most of you will be using something like that, 2000 pixels roughly, some of them will be lower, then you're not going to be using nearly as much memory as me. So I wouldn't worry here so much about the memory. You have to know that to reduce memory, you can still get a really nice render. But to reduce memory, you want to reduce your texture size and reduce the details in your models. Like, see how subdivided this is? If this was one less subdivision, see it's got a turbo smooth with one iteration, then that would be less. Also, if I just click on here, turn that down to 0 and put this on a 1, then in theory, well, it hasn't gone down, so it's because it's rendering. But, you know, for just looking at the image in the scene, like the render is going to be the same, but it's going to make it easier to move through your scene. This is going to be the same, I guess. Yeah, 2 iterations. I can turn that down and just put render iterations on. So that will make it easier to move through your scene if you're having a problem with that. But anyway, let's talk about how to make a better render. So this is after the post-production has been done and after the photoshopping has been done and so on. So this is why I chose this, because I think it's a beautiful render and I think it looks just really nice. There's a number of renders for this project that look really nice. They just came out perfect. So you have to ask yourself, like, what's necessary? Like here, I have no environment out there. I have no trees. I have nothing. Like, if I show you the scene, just make sure this is locked. Yes. Okay. I'm going to go Alt W and I'm going to look at the top view. The thing is, there's several scenes in here. So that's why I've got different lighting set up for different scenes. But you can see there's no environment for this scene. So if we have a look here, I'm going to let's look at the light mix. So this is all the items in my light mix. These are items that are off right now for other rooms. So I'm going to toggle all on and all off. So this does nothing. That's for the landing. That's the sun for the landing, environment light. So environment is really important. This is what I normally focus on the most. This alone gives me all the soft shadows. And this is set up high at 2. I can set it down to 1. You get less soft shadows. I can set it to 3. I would like this, but it gives me blowout. If I get blowout here, I'm going to have to come into the tone mapping. I'm going to turn all of these off. Here, I need highlight compression to get these details, and that's at 1.5. So my light mix for the environment at 3 is too high. If I come here and push this up to 2, it's fine, but you'll see the details get reduced here on the lighting. And 3 is what it needs in order to properly light the room. But now the whole room's a bit gray, like it's not nearly as contrasty and poppy as it was before. So if I put it at 1.5 and then reduce this light mix, reduce this to 2, I don't know. I prefer that. I prefer to have it a bit darker where I can push it up than to have the whole thing a bit gray. I can handle it with a bit gray. Maybe I will use that and do that in post because I can increase the contrast in post and get rid of that. But it's something to play with. Sometimes I do that. Sometimes I set this at 3 and then I will come in here and set this higher. If you're using Corona, you need to be aware also, the way Corona is now, it loves to put in aces by default. You don't really have aces and highlight compression. Aces does have highlight compression in it. and it does have the contrast. The problem is for me, most of the time, is the darks are too dark. I don't want it to have such a strong contrast. So I will try it, and I will go back and forth between the two to see, do I want better highlights? Which one do I want? I might use highlight compression, or I might use ACES. Occasionally I mix the two together, but not normally. Now for this, we're doing this a bit different to how we had it before, just so it is, so you can see it, a slightly different process in getting it done. Like I like this as well. It's just what do you do? Other lights. Okay, other lights is all the lights not assigned to light mix. My first big tip is get your exterior lighting most of the scene if you have an interior. And with Corona, you can do that really well. You can pump up the exterior lighting. It sometimes becomes a problem where you need to then figure out the exterior. You need to come along and look in here and have a refractions override. So you can have a different image outside which isn't getting all blown out. Or you have a plane outside. So there's ways around handling outside. But the most important thing is get enough light coming in through the window that the exterior environment light lights most of your scene. See, this is the other lights. That's what they're doing, right? If I want a night render, I can just turn it off. What you can't do is turn off the sun. If I use the sun, now I did a whole series of renders before. I did a whole project. I'm just going to drag it up and show you some of them now. You'll see I have no sun. And for this whole project, I had no sun. And it was just a study of like soft light coming through. Actually, this one did have a sun because I did it later. And I wanted to add some extra detail. Like without the sun gives extra detail. So use the sun to give extra detail to things. Like this is what you want to be doing, right? The whole point of this was just to have soft lighting. So I've done whole projects where I haven't had lighting coming in through the window, but it's a good idea to have it come through the window to give extra atmosphere to the room. You know, it gives this blowout here, it gives these extra lines on the table, gives these lines and stuff here. So the sun can be important. In this one, without the sun, it's nice and you get soft lighting. With the sun, you get extra detail. Now, the sun also you can use to blow things out. Don't be worried. We used to work where don't have anything blown out. Like that was the general rule. Now I kind of work on the rule of I want to have things slightly blown out. Because if they're not blown out at all, it looks unreal. It looks like everything's muted and it doesn't look like a photo. And I'm trying to go for that photo quality, like the high class, glossy magazine photo quality. And if I can get that, that's great. So you can feel free to raise the sun up. I don't want to have all of this blown out, but I'm happy to have highlights. I'm happy to have something here blown out. I'm happy to have this edge of this chair blown out. If you're going to be doing this, I'm going to tell you something which is really important. Never use something which is perfectly white or something which is perfectly black. If I look at my wall material here as an example, the diffuse color here, I made it darker, right? So the diffuse color is the paint color, which is this color. Then I came in and it was going to be too light. It was going to get too easily blown out, and it's going to be, your lighting is going to be wrong if you make it too light, and you need to start knocking those whites back. Here I've reduced the gamma as much as 0.45, right? Which is loads. The reason it doesn't look so much is because this was so white. Like if I pick this color, it's at 215. If you take a photo of something that's white, you have a table, you have a wall, you take a photo, and then you take it into Photoshop, and then you pick the color, you'll get more of an idea of what real white looks like. This one here is at 163. So I think that's probably what I did, 160. So I was just looking at this, and what I needed to do, that's why, because I wanted to make sure it was below 180. 180 is the minimum I want to have whites at, or the maximum. Knock these whites back, because otherwise they're going to be blown out all over the place. So I don't mind having some things blown out, but I want to be controlling it. Okay, so this is lighting, right? I don't think this is going to do anything. No. And this is just the room behind to light that up, like, because this is reflecting the room behind. I have nothing in that room. And I could put some paint pictures, but as soon as I start putting something in there, it starts having an effect on this image, and then the client has to choose everything they want to go in that room. If I just light it up, it's like a simple enough geometry that everyone just forgets. They just go see it's something there in the mirror, and then they kind of forget what it is. So I've got 2 sets of IES in here. I don't think I actually use this because I prefer it like that. 0.5, 0.2. If I did have it, it would be like that, just to light the back of the scene. But it doesn't give anything to the scene, doesn't add anything, so there's no point in having it on even. Other lights, if I push this up to 2, you can also do that, but the problem is this lights up too much. So I can also just save this out as EXRs, and then in Photoshop add in the other light groups, because this will give me its own EXR for this one, and then I can use that to lighten this. So it's not really a problem. Here we go, den cabinet lights. So this is all the cabinetry. And this I can set to 1. You can zoom in and just get an idea. 2 is probably better, so I can see why I put it at 2. I would say the most important thing is that environment light. So basically, this is how I will light all my scenes. I want that soft shadow across here. I want the soft shadows here. I want soft shadows under the chairs. I want these soft shadows here. And the rule with soft shadows, I want the soft shadows on the wall, is you get soft shadows from large light sources. If you imagine if you have like a torch or something with a very sharp light, you're going to get very hard shadows. So that's why you don't want to be having your IES to be too small or having your IES lighting the scene completely. You get these sharp shadows here under the chairs, and these sharp shadows look shit. So you don't want to be doing that. This is what a lot of people do, right? They put the environment down low where they think it should be, and then they look at their scene and they're like, oh no, I've got the light on, I've got the sun in there, and I don't want to have it blown out, so I'm going to reduce this down. I'll put it down here at 2. They've got everything too white, so it's still blown out. And then they're like trying to figure this out, and they come in here hoping for a quick fix. They might push this highlight compression up super high. So it's not going to get much different from 3, to be honest. 3 is really high. I try not to go higher than 1.5. I think 1 is not on at all, right? Yeah, 1 is nothing. So I try not to go higher than 1.5, and sometimes I do. So they'll blast light. They'll put this on because everything's too white, so it's getting blown out. And then they come in and they want to make it look real. So because it's so dark, they go, okay, well now it's dark. What I have to do is pump up my IES lights. And so they pump these up and they go, yay, now it's bright. And even though you can get a kind of nice render, these shadows under here are absolutely just arse. So I'd rather leave this off and have my soft shadows. If I'm going to have it on, I'm going to have it on so low. I've thought 0.2 I put, that you hardly see it. And it just adds a bit of light to the room. Or I will have a big fill light. But I try not to do that. I try to just get the environment. And my idea is, like, if you look at a room, a normal room, right? Like, if you look at an interior design room, let's just find a blank page here and look at a Hello magazine, interiors. Let's have a look at something nice, okay? Hello. There you go. It's lit from outside. The inside lights are all off. Someone's, I don't know, photoshopped in some candles. See these soft shadows? This is mainly made from exterior lighting. There's a window back here and the light's coming in through there. Here, the light's coming in through the window. I don't really like this image, but the point is it's being lit from outside and it's bright. One of the things you can do, but it's going to add to your render time a lot. So you have to ask yourself if you want to do this, and you might get fireflies, which just won't go away. But you can do this. What I've done here is this by default is 20. And this is to do with the light bounces in the room, the light's coming in and how many times that light bounces before it just disappears. And so here I've set it to 200, so it bounces a lot more. So it's going to brighten up the inside. But in doing that, you have to know you can get fireflies that might not disappear. So just be wary of this. But it will increase the lighting. If you want to increase your render time, you can reduce it from 200 down to 10. I mean, from 20 down to 10. That's going to reduce your render time, but it's going to be darker, and you're going to need to raise it in post. I've tried 200 and I think it's really nice, and my render farm is good, so it works. Sometimes those fireflies just stay forever. And if I've got a rush project, I will never raise it up to 200. Depends how much time I have for the individual renders. All right, so that's lighting. And if you're going to improve your renders, I would say that's the first thing you need to have done for interiors, is dealing with exterior lighting, getting as much of it as possible coming in through the windows. Now, one of the things you can do, if you just can't get the light coming in from the environment, if you look in my environment, I have the skylight, the Corona Sky. So that's what I have in there. And it's attached to this light. Like if you just take this light, at least I hope it's attached. Yeah, it's attached. A trick we used to use is do like sky portals, they were called. And a sky portal is, well, it had a little tick box on it as well, but you're basically coming in, doing a Corona light, and just set this to rectangle. And you're putting it around the window here. Okay, fine, I can do it now. Woo! All right, there was some glitch, so I couldn't do it. Okay, so let's just see how this is. Let's look at that light. Okay, so the light's there. And I don't advise you to do this, although I do it occasionally. Now, for this, I'm just going to start this interactive rendering again, and I'm going to show you what to do. What you see here is something you should definitely know about lights. I made them all instances, so they're all the same. If I affect one, it affects all the others. Is you have occlude other lights. So the environment right now is being occluded. It's hitting the back of those lights, and it's just stopping. So you can turn this off, and you don't want it visible directly, the light normally. Occasionally you do. You don't want it visible in reflections. You know, if I turn it on, it's going to appear in reflections on the glass and things like this. And you don't want a refraction, so it's going to appear through the glass. And I don't need any caustics for this scene. My point is simply, if I turn off the environment so you can see, I can turn off the sun for now. Here we go. Okay, I didn't assign it to anything, so it's just in others. So let's put it 100. Okay, so I'm getting some light from this. 200. 300. 400. So you can fake the light from outside with these large light sources. And they do a relatively good job. I am going to need to pump up this highlights compression though. So they do a kind of good job of faking the environment. If I make visible direct in refractions, this will go white. So it looks more like I had it before. They do a good job of faking the environment. And sometimes you can do that to get extra light into the room. Like if you have the environment on as well, and you have it set at 1, you can see these bring in a bunch of extra light into the room. So this is a trick that we used to use. However, if you look at this, you see all this light coming up here on the ceiling. The thing is, this is light from down here is coming up and hitting the ceiling. And because of that, you get this unreal light always on the ceiling when this is done. So you can always see it's been done. Because if I turn this off and I put the environment light up, you see it doesn't occur the same way. So you can use it and it can look good. Just know that you can always see on the ceiling when someone's used light portals on the windows. That's really my first tip for this. If you want to get better renders, the first thing to do is you want soft lighting inside. If you can get that nice, beautiful soft light coming from inside, or the other thing is like if you have, let's say you're working in a place, and I'm going to delete all of these because edit, select instances, because I don't want to show them here when I'm doing this. Okay, so let's say you're working in a room that's closed off. Like we did a bunch of renders for a cruise ship a couple of years ago. And if you're doing those, like there's very small windows, very little light coming into some of the spaces, or it's just completely closed off. If you're doing a cinema room then it's going to be all closed off. So you don't have any natural light coming in from outside. So knowing this, we have to go with this IES. You can do this and it can look okay. The other thing you can do, I'm pretty sure it's this IES here, right? So if I turn this off, it should all turn off. Yeah. So it's this one. So the other thing you can do, and it's going to look really weird in the scene because these grids are going to get really big, is just change the size. It's the disk with a radius of 50. And if I make this 500, you're going to have to reduce the intensity a lot. Let's try 500. Let's try 100. Okay, so now you see the lighting under the chairs is much softer. So it can give you much softer shadows, right? And you're going to be like, what? That's crazy. I don't know if I can push it up to 10,000 and push this intensity down to... Oh no, I changed the temperature. Oops. I don't know if I can... how far I can push this. I don't believe the light comes out of the whole IES here. I believe it comes out of the disk on the top, but I'm not 100% sure. And then if I put this intensity down to 20... Let's try 40. All right, so that's kind of okay. So for interiors, you have this as an option. I've never made them this big, I'll be honest. But I just want to show you, and I'm just exaggerating to show you how it looks. And so you can have soft shadows with your lighting, your interior IES lights. So that is possible. And you get this nicer soft shadow up here. I mean, if, like I said earlier, the larger the light source, the softer it's going to be. So if you have these really annoying hard shadows, you can make the light source bigger, much bigger in some cases, and then you can get your soft shadows back. That's a cheat, but it can improve your render quality. The most important thing is to get that lighting coming in through those windows and looking good. And if you can do that and you can get the room lit from outside instead of being lit from inside, then you're halfway there with having beautiful renders. So yeah, that would be my main tip, my top tip for anyone who wants to get some gorgeous renders going for their client. Okay, I'll see you in the next one. And in the next one, I will cover my next tip for getting better renders.